Welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. The Pharmacy Leaders Podcast is a member of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, with interviews and advice on building your professional network, brand, and a purposeful second income from students, residents, and innovative professionals.
Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast. I wanted to introduce someone who has created a fantastic podcast on YouTube. His name is Ahmed from the University of Iowa College of Pharmacy. And the next 5 days, you're going to hear one episode each day. And I encourage you to go to his channel to subscribe at YourPop, YOURPOP. It stands for the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast, where he interviews successful people and how they got down their leadership road. So hopefully you'll subscribe. 2,000 people already have in the last month. And here we go.
Hey guys, it's Ahmed here again, and we're actually on episode 2 of the Your Pursuit of Purpose podcast. And I have with me again Abdul Wadud Dawood. And something we actually didn't get into in the first video are Wadud's his past, or the trials and tribulations that he had to go through before he became the man he is today. And everybody has a story that's unique to themselves. So I asked him if he'd be willing to share that with you on. Without hesitation, he said okay. So without further ado, maybe you can just talk about what you really went through before you became where you are now.
Definitely. Welcome everybody to episode 2. So my story, where I come from. I touched on it last time, where my parents are from Sudan. I was born in Virginia and raised in Iowa, but I don't think that really gives you a good context of the type of situation that everyone in my life has gone through. So my parents initially came to America with just my dad. So my dad was in America for about 2 years before he brought my mom with him to America. The story behind that is that he told her that, she said that she wanted him to come and bring her to America because she would be able to, she'd wash his clothes because no one is there to wash his clothes. And he was like, that's so cute. So he brought her and showed her a washing machine and was like, wow, you don't need to wash my clothes anymore. But, really growing up in America with my family, I had 2 parents who were really accustomed to the Sudanese lifestyle. And me, I'm a direct contrast where I only know America. That's all I know. The systems that I'm starting to learn, the everything that happens in America, I was getting a totally different experience than them. So growing up in Pheasant Ridge, I grew up in a neighborhood that you know quite well, Pheasant Ridge Apartments. I grew up there as well. It's an apartment complex in Iowa City, Iowa, for Section 8 housing, or families that don't have as much of an income as they might like. And that neighborhood, while it was for people who didn't have that much money, I think it's a catalyst to the type of person I am today, where there were so many people around me who were struggling, and that consistent struggle really, it just takes a toll on you, So I was growing up in Pheasant Ridge, and I always had this thing in the back of my mind where I was like, I want to get out of here. I don't want my family to be here. This is not the best case scenario. And I had great friends around me, definitely, but it just really took a toll on me. And, growing up, I got to junior high, and when I was in high school, my life kind of changed a little bit, where my father got an illness, and he was hospitalized for a few months, maybe about 4 or 5 months, and that, in the end, resulted in amputation for my father. And that was one thing where it just felt like it was so sobering to me, because I knew America was hard. I knew I was struggling to understand this dynamics, the system, everything about America. I was struggling to understand it, and I realized that I didn't realize that my parents were working so hard just to provide, they came from a place where they didn't even, the language of they come to America, they don't even know the language, and they're working so hard just to provide for us. And it's crazy to me that, I'm having these thoughts where we could do better. Mm-hmm. But I learned that my dad actually, got to a point where he worked so hard that it ended up costing a leg. And I think that was really big to me, because it showed me, first off, that they were dealt a bad hand. I think that the American dream is something that's sold to everyone across the world, and none of them realize that it's a second generation that actually benefits from it. Our parents really sacrificed for this American dream that they were going for, and what did it turn into? It turned into my dad being sick, just to provide for his family. And it's not hard work, the quote, hard work pays off, like, it's a myth, period. Hard work is good, and you need to work hard to accomplish a lot of things, but I promise you, my dad worked harder than, I feel 95% of the people in the nation, and no, it didn't pay off yet, he's struggling, he's in a different situation. So what that did is, it ingrained this this thing that's in my heart where I feel like I have to work hard to show my parents the benefits of the American dream and to show them that we can realize this dream. It's just that the system doesn't work how you thought it did, you know?
Yeah.
It's not what you thought it was. We're not going to come from Sudan and just make it happen. It's totally different. But I've been really passionate or diligent with, you know, learning about the system, learning how I can actually, you know, make the system work in my favor. And what does that turn into? It turns into getting an engineering degree, getting good grades, getting scholarships, going to school without having to spend my family didn't, you know, pay $1 for my school, and if anything, I've actually given back while I'm in school, you know, and alhamdulillah, I'm so thankful for that. But it just showed me that, you know, there are these systems in place for us to take over America in a way, you know, for us to take advantage of what is given to us, the opportunity, whatever you want to call it. Right. And I think that what happened with my family's story has really ingrained that into me, you know. Now I know that I need to work hard and I need to understand the system because I am going to realize the American dream for my family. You know, there's no way around it. They're going to get it.
They're going to live it through you.
Exactly.
That's such a good way to look at it.
But yeah, I mean, touching back to Pheasant Ridge, I think that the huge thing is just that we were all in a situation where all of us were struggling. You know, you remember like there were days where we would try to find, you know, $1 so we can get a ball from Arctic. You know, like, it's so weird, but like we didn't have money like that. And we weren't going to ask our parents because we're trying to eat. You know, like they have a totally different dilemma. And we knew that. But yeah, so the background, my parents being from Sudan, me being American, and then paired with the situation that we lived in Pheasant Ridge, has totally changed our lives.
Yeah, and just a little thing that I remember from our childhood was the cardboard boxes.
Oh my gosh,
For
yeah.
fun, we'd literally get cardboard boxes.
Literally.
We'd tear them apart and use them as slides to go down hills.
We took out so many cards. This is how you know there's a broken system too. Because we couldn't afford sleds, we would get cardboard boxes, right? We got to a point where people were getting mad at us. And I can't even believe this growing up. I never even thought about it. We were getting yelled at for taking cardboard boxes out of the container. But what are those for? Recycling. Right. What were we doing? Recycling the boxes. Like,
exactly.
Come on now.
We're utilizing
it was
tools
crazy.
to have fun.
But yeah, so sleds overpriced. Cardboard, free. Perfect. Priceless.
Priceless. I love it. But yeah, man, and just transitioning from that. So, you know, with all this that you had in your childhood and your background, I just want to know, so in terms of when you went to New Delhi, India as your study abroad, and you were teaching English to homeless men. Yeah. So how did that what inspired you to start even teaching? Because you were there on a study abroad. It's a new environment, a new place, and it's, you know, you're trying to figure out how to get by yourself. Yeah. But then you're like, you know what? I'm going to step out of my comfort zone of actually, you weren't in a comfort zone. You were in a new zone. Yeah. So you stepped out of it and you were like, okay, I'm going to leave all the academics aside for a second and take some of my time out of my day and go tutor or just basically teach English to homeless men. Yeah.
I think
that's remarkable.
I think the first thing that I'd want to say is that the reason I went to India, and I don't even know if I said this out loud before, really, but the reason that I went to India was because, you know, I have that thing in my heart that's connected to Sudan, right? But there was no study abroad in Sudan. Right. And I didn't want to study abroad in London or somewhere else. I didn't want to study abroad in America with an accent, and I hope you understand what I mean by that. But like, I didn't want to go into an environment where it was like, oh, everything's comfortable. Yeah, this is great. You know, like we go and pour the water. Everything's just good. No, I didn't want that. I wanted to be uncomfortable, and I wanted to see how I'd react in a situation like that. Wow. In terms of teaching English to those men, I mean, once again, it probably connects to my parents. You know, they were dealt a bad hand. They were dealt this American dream, and it was fake. You know, it doesn't work like that if you don't have all the other things in the background that you're supposed to have. So I think English is such a critical aspect of success, whether we like it or not. It seems so basic. But I met so many kids, so many people. And when I say English to homeless men in New Delhi, India, these guys were 19, 20, 21. There was a 25-year-old student, you know. They're older than me. And it hurt me so much to see them working hard, you know, working overnights. And the fact that they were still going to this NGO. They were going to this NGO and they were trying to learn English, but there was no one from America teaching them English or any English speaker teaching them English. And it was just so powerful to me.
What are NGOs, real quick?
Non-government organization. Think of like a non-profit type of thing. Okay. Yeah, gotcha. It's just not connected to the government. Okay. But anyway, I mean, I was really hit by the fact that they're working so hard just to learn English, and they just didn't have the outlet for it. And once again, you know, like work hard. Hard work pays off. It wasn't paying off for these guys. You know, it wasn't paying off for these guys. And I think I really, really, really wanted to show them that, you know, if you learn these skills that are English, you can do whatever you want. You know, like there was one of the guys there who was actually homeless, and he was he would come to my class. My class started at 10 a.m. and it would go until 1 p.m. or a little bit later. and he would work overnight until maybe 7 a.m., sleep for an hour or two, and then come to my class. Right? Like, yeah, like it's crazy. And you know, we're so comfortable in our lives here. But like once I saw that, I knew I was committed to something bigger, you know, and we worked together. And actually, by the end of his time, I taught him English. We learned how to use email on these laptops.
Wow.
We learned how to create margins on a business and actually figure out how to make a business. And they actually, 3 of the guys, before we even left, had a business running for selling dried fruit in India.
Really?
But I really genuinely think that English was one of the most critical aspects of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
So why did I do it? I did it because I didn't want to be comfortable, and I saw that these people were working hard and it wasn't paying off, and I need to figure out how we can close that gap.
And that's an example of just exactly what I said about this young man is that he's brilliant, he's bright, but he's just so humble. Like, no one just goes out of their way to kind of like, yeah, I'm just going to go struggle. Yeah. Like, not many people would be willing to do that, but, you know, that just says a lot about you.
I don't know about the brilliant and bright thing, but I appreciate that.
It's just, I'm just stating the facts, and you guys will probably give me this, you would tell them the exact same thing that I am. So, with all that being said, of course, the one last thing that I wanted to touch on was, again, going back to the resume, is that you got the opportunity to work with the National Department of Energy.
Yeah.
That's huge.
National Energy Technology Laboratory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at some point you were at the U.S. Department of Energy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so just take us back. How did you find out? Like, energy is not something that you think about. Like, I want to study energy as a mechanical engineer. I want to learn about it. Definitely. So, like, did you meet a mentor? Or what's the story behind that?
Yeah, it's a comedy story, first off. Yeah, it's just a funny story. First thing I want to say is that, you know, he said mechanical engineering. He said, you're mechanical engineering. Why would you go into energy? Your major is totally for credibility. Think about it like this. Most companies are expecting you to work for them for more than 4 years, and you're going to learn just as much, if not more, than you learned in your degree. Mm-hmm. So I just want people to realize that your degree doesn't put you in any box. You know, it doesn't. You get to dictate that. But to connect to your story, so the way that I got involved with the U.S. Department of Energy.
U.S. Department of Energy.
Yeah, you remember when I said that I had the conversation with my friend where I said I want to work at Tesla? Mm-hmm. So about 3 months before that, and this is documented, I said, dude, I don't know what it is, but I feel like something's going to change this year. It was right after my freshman year. It was the summer of my freshman year. I feel like something's just going to change this year. I don't know why. I felt like I came to Iowa State in college, and I was expecting to, like, change the world, and I got there, and I was like, wait, what? We just take, you know, calculus, and that's it. Right. So I was really diligent about accomplishing that thing that I said. I just want something to be different. So I was going to different networking events and whatnot. And one networking event I was at, it was the Iowa State Club Fair. It was, you know, probably August. And I was at this Iowa State Club Fair. I'm talking to a young woman from Nesby. I remember it like it was yesterday. And we're talking. And an older man comes in front of us. He's maybe, 50 years old, something like that. Yeah. Walks right like as if he went right in front of this frame right here. Walks in between us. And he didn't realize what he did, and then he goes, "Oh, whoa, sorry, didn't mean to jump into your conversation. Please disregard me, whatever." And he was like, "I'm sure you don't want to talk to an old man like me anyway." And I was like, "How do you know I don't want to talk to you?" And he thought this was comedy for some reason. He's like, "All right, well, let's talk." So I tell the girl I was talking to.
You had no idea who he was.
I have no idea who he is, but anybody who knows me knows that this is very normal for me. Like I like humans. I thrive off of humans. Yeah, like what do you mean I don't want to talk to you, sir? What if I did? You don't know that. Anyway, we talked for about, 30, 45 seconds at first. Just tell me about yourself. I tell him about myself, and you don't know anything. You don't have anything going for your freshman year. When someone asks you, like, give me your elevator pitch, and you don't have anything to pitch. Yeah. I was like, so I'm, studying mechanical engineering, and, I'm just taking classes, and, I'm calculus. I play soccer, and he was like, no, but, like, really, like, what do you do? And I was like, sorry, man, I don't have the answer for you, Anyway, the conversation went on for, probably another 3 minutes. Right. And he ends up having to go, and he takes a corner out of a piece of paper, writes down his email, and he said, let's get coffee this Thursday. And I was like, all right, sure, whatever, let's get coffee. Like, cool, I got an old man I'm going to go get coffee with. This is going to be great.
Okay.
Turns out, after I email him, he says the location I'm supposed to come to, and it turns out to be the Virtual Reality Application Center at Iowa State University. I'm like, this is weird, but whatever. That's
not where you get coffee.
Yeah, I go to the back, and I see he has an assistant. I'm like, this is weird. Like, this isn't coffee at all.
And mind you, he did not tell you anything about who he was.
Nothing. This is all like, he told me he's a professor. Yeah, he told me he's a professor, but like, I'm expecting to get coffee with a man and finally learn. Like, I'm expecting to start the conversation.
Right.
I get into his office and we start talking, whatever. First thing he goes, yeah, well, dude, nice seeing you, whatever. He said, so this is a little bit of the work that my team does, and he's the director of the simulation, modeling, and decision science team for the Department of Energy. So he just talks about that a little bit and whatnot, and then I'm not even lying. Probably 5 minutes into the conversation, this is before I probably said anything, and he goes, "So, you want to work with me?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to work with you for sure." And I walk out of that meeting, and you can ask Ahmed Ismail, and if he's not a guest on this podcast, he needs to be a guest on this podcast, and I'm sure he will be. Absolutely. But I called him. He goes, "Hey, like, how did the meeting go with your professor?" And my response was, "Honestly, man, I don't even know what happened, but I'm a research assistant for the Department of Energy." And it changed my life. Honestly, it changed my life. But realize that the catalyst between that whole interaction, that might have jump-started my whole career. That everything that we talked about, that, you know, maybe I'm successful, whatever, who cares? Everything started with probably that. Wow. And what was it? A man walked in front of me, and what even more, he said, "Excuse me," and he wanted to get out of my way. And the one thing that changed my life, maybe, was, "No, I did want to talk to you."
Wow. 2 words. Or 3 words, "I want to talk to you."
Yeah. It's crazy.
4 words, I guess.
And then, you know, fast forward, you know, I'm working for the Department of Energy at the Virtual Reality Application Center, have projects, and then I worked for the National Energy Technology Laboratory. I just had a publication for the Department of Energy about like 2 weeks ago. All of this, like none of that, like that whole track of life would have been totally eliminated. Ahmed Ismail was with me. He saw me talk to his professor. He was on the outside just looking in, but yeah. So if I need to tell anybody the value behind just putting yourself out there, I didn't know anything. I was a freshman. I didn't even know how to give a pitch. Like, I gave probably the worst elevator pitch ever. You know, like I'm still embarrassed that I gave that pitch. But in reality, you know, it doesn't take much more than communication to solve a lot of your problems.
And that really just tells, like, the power of communication. Like,
Incredible.
this has been a reoccurring theme throughout our entire conversation today.
Yeah.
Communication, LinkedIn, all these are platforms for communicating.
Yeah. I think that anyone can change their life when you're diligent about your knowledge, you know, gaining knowledge, learning how you learn. Take your first 2 years out of college to learn how you learn. You're going to have horrible professors, for sure. You're going to have to teach yourself things. It's inevitable, right? If you can learn the way that you learn, that's extremely valuable. Secondly, if you can network, you know, have these conversations, communicate with these people and figure out what am I lacking? What are you lacking? Maybe we can help each other out. Something like that. Just communicating. And then 3, you know, confidence or purpose, you know. Defining your purpose, realizing that one of my favorite quotes of all time, I've told this to you before.
I was going to ask you for the quote, but...
Yeah. So the quote is, "Confidence is not optimism or pessimism, and it's not a character attribute. It is simply the expectation of a positive outcome." And I think that's so valuable, because there's so many people who think that confidence is like something inherent within us, and it's nothing more than just positivity. You know, you are confident if you think of a positive outcome, if you're positive about what's going to come about that conversation. You know, so I was confident with Mark, my professor, but it was nothing more. Like, I didn't deserve to be confident. I had nothing going for me. I was just expecting something positive out of that conversation. But yeah, like, if there's anything I can leave people with, I mean, I would just say, like, there's an extreme value in communicating and networking effectively, learning how you learn, and just being really scholarly about everything that you're doing and whatever you're interested in. And then lastly, you know, just being confident, realizing what your purpose is, and realizing that it doesn't take anything more than you just believing in a positive outcome for you to really portray something that could change your life. Like
pursue your purpose.
To pursue your purpose. Boom. Yeah.
Boom. All right. And we do know, I really appreciate you taking some of your valuable time out of your day. He's actually going off to Michigan here soon to go intern at IDEX and energy. They're specifically in their energy sector.
This company is not in the energy space, but all. I'm always
doing something with energy.
Yeah.
He's an energy enthusiast.
That's what they say.
But no, it was great having you on, and I do appreciate you giving us some of your time and letting the audience know kind of like who Dude really is. Because most people know him as like this successful young man, but he hasn't always been this way. And he came from a place that didn't really allow. It didn't at first. It didn't allow us to thrive.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't make sense. It wouldn't have made sense. And I appreciate everything about you. To the viewers, I think that what he is creating right here is incredibly important. Not to me, not to him, and maybe not even to you, but to the people behind us. There's so many kids in communities like we grew up in who don't end up where we're at. You know, and it's nothing more than having these types of conversations and letting people visualize the potential that we have for each other.
Absolutely. And, again, I want to keep thanking you because it's just been so great having you on. And we'll do that. What I want to do, of course, at the end of, having someone on, I want to give you the opportunity to leave a message with the audience. Kind of something, just the last bang, basically, of telling them one piece of advice you can just give them. Basically, just to pursue their purpose. One thing that you can just leave them with. And I'll give you a second to kind of think about it.
Yeah.
But, and this is not something I asked them about. This is very impromptu, on the spot.
Yeah.
So something you can just leave them with.
If there is anything I'd want to leave you with, it would be the fact that there's nothing holding you back besides yourself. And that's so cliche, it's incredible. But in reality, my life, I'm not supposed to be where I'm at. If we think of, hard work, whatever you want to say, let's say hypothetically that my parents were still in Sudan. I might be living off of less than $10 a day, So it's not that I deserve it or that you deserve it. It's just that it can happen. And so, I just want everyone to realize that it can happen for you. And just take advantage of every single opportunity. You can be nervous. That's fine. But just dive into it. And the worst case scenario of any situation is that you learn something.
Wow. Thank you so much, Wadood, for joining us today. And I
Thank
appreciate it, man. All right.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you guys for joining us again. And we'll see you guys on episode 3, I believe.
Thank you.
Take care.
Support for this episode comes from the audiobook Memorizing Pharmacology, a relaxed approach. With over 9,000 sales in the United States, United Kingdom, and Australia, it's the go-to resource to ease the pharmacology challenge. Available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon.com, in print, ebook, and audiobook. Thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Leaders Podcast with your host, Tony Guerra. Be sure to share the show with the hashtag #PharmacyLeaders.